Hi, I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground magazine, and this is another edition of WCM's Park Update. My colleague Mike Gast is here, CEO and president of the Emiola Group. I see, Mike, I finally got that down to where it's almost like
Yeah, you
automated.
nailed it. You
There you
nailed it.
go. And then
That's 3 years of practice.
our our guest today is Ravi Parikh, who is the founder of RoverPass. And for those of you who don't know, RoverPass does a ton of different things. I guess you've kind of gotten into reservation park management. You also, when you first started, I guess Ravi, just explain a little bit about what the company was when you first started and how you've kind of developed into what you are today. I guess.
Yeah. So when we first started, we were a marketplace. So if you look at roverpass.com, we've got every campground in the country listed. Maybe not all of them, but we try to have all of them listed.
Yeah.
And after doing that for a couple of years, we realized that in order to be a marketplace, you also need the reservation software component as well.
Mhm.
This was 10 years ago. And at that time, there were not that many reservation systems. There's just a handful. And so we started developing a reservation system to meet that need and to eventually be able to relaunch the marketplace
Yeah.
with our customers. And that's exactly what we do today. Um, the bulk of what we do is really the reservation system. The marketplace is a bonus or an add-on for our customers. Like if you Google RV parks in Cape Canaveral, Florida, our
Okay.
RoverPass page will be like number one, two, or three on that search result. And so if you're a park in that area, you benefit from our marketplace because we're sending you traffic. And so that's kind of the idea. We started off as a marketplace, moved into more of the reservation management system space. We still have the marketplace, still is relevant. A lot of customers using it, but yeah, that's sort of how we switched it up after a few years.
So, Ravi,
Okay.
is there any crossover with the big chains? My history is with Campgrounds of America, but the Yogi Parks, all of those. Does any of those become part of a RoverPass too, or are they still independent of that?
They're independent from our reservation system. KOA's got their own system. K2 Yogi's primarily using CampSpot, but any of those properties have the opportunity to join the RoverPass marketplace. And the way that the marketplace would work for them is that they would get a request to stay at their property. So it's a prepaid request. If they approve it, they get their request gets accepted and they put it into whichever system that they're using. Or they can modify it. They can chat with the camper. It's sort of like the early days of Airbnb. If you guys remember way back when Airbnb first launched, they had instantly bookable inventory and they had request to book inventory. And so
Mhm.
our marketplace functions more on a request basis if you are strictly using our marketplace. But if you're using our reservation system software, all of those properties are also on our marketplace and they're instantly bookable because we know all of their inventory because they're using our reservation system. And those guys will show up a little higher than the request to book customers just because they're using the full software.
Is there any integration to public parks at all?
No. Well, so we have public parks listed on our directory, but no integration, so to say.
Okay. Yeah. I'm always a little surprised when I go to conferences and I talk with park owners, how many of them just kind of bounce around from reservation system to reservation or park management stuff. Do you see that at Rover? Do you like, obviously at Rover Pass, you want to make sure they stay, but
Yeah.
do you see like people coming to Rover Pass with a list of other software systems that they've used?
Yeah, I mean, I think people shop around nowadays. There's
Yeah.
a, there's a few systems, so whenever you win a sale, they're usually evaluating at least a handful of other systems. You got to
Mhm.
win, right? You got to offer them the best
Yeah.
best solution. Um, Once they become customers, I don't see a lot of people switching a lot. I mean, it's kind of like it's a lot of work to switch from one system to another, right? You got to import all your
Yeah.
reservations. Um, You got to train your whole staff on a new software. All the softwares do the same things or similar things, but they all do them differently, right? And so it just takes a lot of retraining of the staff, which I think is challenging. And kind of the way we're thinking now is that we want to be able to like really solve the customer's needs, and because of AI, which we'll talk about, the cost to build software has dropped so dramatically in the last, I would say, since probably December of last year when OpenAI released GPT-03.
Mm-hmm.
And even since then, we've iterated so much on the coding models that are powering all of this AI-driven software development, that kind of our approach is like, hey, like tell us what you need, and our developers can whip it up for you rapid speed, because now you can build a feature or even an entire platform in just days, right? Like
Yeah.
a good example of this would be, we had a customer that came to us and said, hey, my property, I only allow people who have a membership to make a reservation at my property, but I also need to sell memberships, and I need to sell different kinds of memberships. They're valid for different amounts of time. And then I need to validate whether that membership is active or not before they make the reservation. And when I sat there thinking about that, I was like, well, we don't have that feature. And so I just got to work using Cursor, which is the coding IDE that I use. And I just talked to Cursor like a human being. I just described it, what exactly I needed. I wrote up a product development doc, and then I fed that into Cursor, and it built me the entire membership platform within a few hours. The challenge is that if you're a non-developer, you kind of get stuck. You get to the point where it's like, okay, I'm 80% of the way there, and I don't know how to get that last 20%. But as a software company, we have a bunch of developers on staff. So I think of it from the perspective of, look, I'm the product manager. I hear the customer's problems. Let me just get it like 70, 80% of the way there, and let me get my engineering team to come back around and polish it for me so that it actually works for the customer's need. And that iteration loop has so dramatically changed in the last, literally the last 6 months, that software, I think it's an order of magnitude cheaper to build than it was literally 6 months ago. And so, we're excited to be able to start really, really customizing offering. Like the way I think about RoverPass is, we've got this really nice software infrastructure that serves 85 to 90% of the customers, but then that last 10 or 15%, you come to us and we have kind of like a software development shop that comes in and customizes for you. And in the past, just 6 months ago, if you came to us with like a crazy situation, I would have just said, look, like we have to cater to all of our customers, but now we can hyper personalize down, because the cost of being able to do that has dropped so dramatically that the math makes a lot more sense, right? We look at the deal, we look at the customer, how many transactions are they going to do? And then we can very quickly kind of be like, oh yeah, well, this might cost us a few $1,000s to build. Let's do it. And then we can solve the problem very rapidly. So I think that's going to be a trend happening with a lot of software development companies. We're smaller. I think we've got like mid-20s in terms of staff, so we're able to sort of be a little bit more agile than like larger players can. But I think that's going to become more or less a norm with the ability to develop so fast features.
Yeah, and that's kind of on the back end for the developers. I guess I know one of the reasons you wanted to come on was just talking, and one of the things we talk a lot about here on the show is AI. And I know people kind of like roll their eyes, or they kind of get tired of AI. it changes so much. It's hard
I
to
mean,
like keep
it's
track of everything. But I know for the park owners, it's becoming a larger part, or it can become something really useful for them, I guess, over the
yeah,
last year or so.
absolutely. And to just echo on your point of like it being complicated or it's moving so fast, to be totally honest, I myself was using AI on, I would call it the most basic form of using AI is using ChatGPT. I replaced Google in my web browser with ChatGPT. It just gives me way better responses than Google ever can. Now Google released their own AI into search, so I've been finding myself switching back to Google a little bit more.
Yep.
But for a while there, I was literally using ChatGPT for everything. Like I built, I'm not I build software. I'm not very good at like construction and stuff. And like I needed to build a pergola on the top of my, like we have a pergola, but it's uncovered. And so I asked ChatGPT like, hey, like how do I do this? And it
Yep.
literally gave me very clear instructions how to do it, and like it gave me all the links at Home Depot of all the parts that I need to buy, and so I just click bought it all. But up until about January, I would say I was even still using AI, kind of I would say like on noob mode, like the most basic form of it, just asking GPT questions.
Yeah.
And there's probably still a lot of people that haven't even started doing that. But the next kind of iteration of AI is like these AI agents and agentic workflows. So an AI agent is basically like the way I don't even call them agents because I think that's a little bit confusing terminology. I just call them employees. Like we have a team of AI employees now at RoverPass that literally do things that humans used to do, and there's two types of agents out there, and for this purpose, we'll just call them employees. There's two types of employees out there. There's deterministic employees, and then there's fully agentic employees. Deterministic means that um, when you're building out these flows of what these employees do, it's more like if this, then that. It's not really, you're not really sending data to ChatGPT or Grok or Anthropic and telling it, hey, take this data and process it and then tell me what you think. It's more like, hey, I think a deterministic flow in a campground would be, I'm trying to think of a good example here. A check-in agent, right? Like a check-in agent would be basically like, uh, you know a reservation's coming. It would do something like check all the reservations, check to see if the invoices have been paid, and then it could send out an email based off of the invoice status of every reservation. And so that's more of a deterministic flow. Now, an agentic flow, you have it's a combination of like a if this then that flow, but then right in the middle is a step where you actually need a brain to process. You need to think. And that's where the AI comes in. AI is very good at reasoning, right? Like in my RV, I couldn't figure out why my water heater wasn't turning on or it wasn't heating. So I just started asking like, what's wrong with my water heater? And it gave me all these lists of things that could be wrong with my water heater. And eventually I just started testing all of them, and eventually I figured it out. Like it was the control board on the water heater was bad. I replaced it, and boom, my water heater was working again. And I was like, this is great. And so, um, in a campground, a deterministic flow, or sorry, an agentic flow could be, hey, I need to check the weather every few hours, and if there's a large storm coming in, look for a hurricane. If you're on the southern, if you're on the coastline of Florida or in the Gulf, if there's a hurricane coming in, determine if I need to send all my residents a text message alert letting them know of inclement weather coming in. So it's like the AI is logically reasoning whether or not it should send this type of message within a deterministic flow. And there's so many different uses at campgrounds. Like if you can break down what your staff is doing, um, you can start to think through how to build out these like logic flows that need to be done that are repetitive. You're doing them over and over again. You're looking for certain conditions, and then you're doing an action based off of these flows. Um, and so that's how like that. I think that is how a campground could use AI internally within a company like us. We're using it for things like accounting. How do we automate accounting? How do we automate payroll? How do we automate HR tasks, which all are relevant to campgrounds as well? Those are just your more like business processes, but then there's like very specific industry campground related processes you could start to automate
So
as well.
do you see this as having an application for campers that are looking for much more specific information about a campground? I know in my past it used to be, we'd ask them the size of their rig, whether they were traveling with pets, what their power demands were. But now are they asking for sites that face the sunset or close to the water, or is that an AI driven
Yeah,
function too?
yeah. So that's chatbots, right? So chatbots are you guys we've all used the chatbot, probably talking to like Chase Bank or like I don't know Expedia, and it used to be that these chatbots were kind of like frustrating and didn't really understand what it is that you were asking, or it just didn't solve your problem all that well. Now, when you chat with it, it gives very, very contextually relevant answers. Not only we just deployed a chatbot for support, which I think is relevant to campgrounds as well. For their people, the people that are staying at the campground could use this, but we use it internally for support for our campground owners. Now, we have a knowledge base, and that knowledge base has like 400 articles that campground owners, in theory, could look at, but it takes time to query and look through the knowledge base to find the thing that you're looking for. Now, the AI, you just talk to it and you're like, hey, I need to change my rates. And the campground owner will get a very clear explanation of exactly what to do because it's using our knowledge base and multiple articles to formulate a response to give back to that owner. So on the way that you're describing it, Mike, if you're a camper and you're looking to make a reservation at a campground, the chatbot would not only have access to all the data within the reservations platform itself, but it has access to all the other data that's surrounding that campground, like the weather. It can ingest the map of the campground, so it can know that this it can read the map. If the map has a compass on it and it says this map, this site is pointing north, it can infer that, well, if this site's pointing north, that means that it may or may not be facing the sunset, depending on the geography of the location. And so it's getting to the point where it can take multiple data sources and synthesize and understand what's going on. And not only that, but you can train the AI. So if you're monitoring everything that people are asking the AI, you can see all the responses that are coming through. And it's as simple as just typing in a Q&A response, right? It's like, oh, well, you answered this way last time, so let me just rewrite the question that somebody asked in a question format and then in an answer format. So the next time around somebody asks that question, it answers it the way that you want it to answer. And so there's a training process, right? You go through. It's not going to be perfect day one. You're going to have to iterate through it to make it better. But we launched this, I would say, maybe 90 days ago for our customers on the campground owners support side. And the first 2 weeks, it was just giving crazy responses. But as we started training it, now we're 90 days in, the responses are actually incredible, like to the point where they're faster than a human can actually. If they called our support team, our support team is awesome, but we're humans, right? It takes a second for somebody to pick up the phone. It takes a second for somebody to respond to an email. But the AI is essentially doing that within seconds of an owner needing something answered. And the same translates to the way that campgrounds provide support to their campers. Campers need responses to their issues quickly, right? A great example of an agentic workflow or AI employee would be a maintenance employee. So let's say that you're starting to combine your chat with your operation. So let's say that a camper checks in and they say something like, "Well, I don't know, my electrical pedestal isn't giving power, or like I'm not getting power from it for whatever reason." The AI chatbot will understand that that means that there's a maintenance issue. So now you can build out a flow that says, okay, well, if the AI chatbot is determining that the type of issue that this customer is having is like one of 6 things that could go wrong at a campground, and then there's the other category, which is your crazy wild situation that they may not know what to do. But if it's one of these 6 categories, what we need to do is dispatch our maintenance team or send a message. If the campground's using Slack or Microsoft Teams, or an email or a text message, or even make an outbound phone call to the person who's in charge of maintenance. And so it cuts out a lot of steps in the process to actually solve the problem. So that entire flow would be, I would call that the maintenance agent or the maintenance employee. So it's handling the dispatching of maintenance.
Yeah. Do you see like park owners getting more trustworthy of AI tools, or because I think that's one of the things I hear the most from park owners is, well, I'm putting a lot of trust in this AI tool to like help somebody pick a site or whatever, and I don't know if I'm there yet. I guess, do you see that? Do you see people getting more comfortable with it?
I think it's going to happen over time, right? Like if you look at the first, like I said, it takes training. These AI agents need to be trained just like an employee needs to be trained. So the first few weeks, it's going to be the same as having a brand new employee at your office. Like they don't know. They haven't worked there long enough to know all the ins and outs. But as you train the agent, now you never have to train the agent again, right? Like once you train it, it knows. Like it's not going to mess that up ever again. Whereas a human could forget. Agents do not forget, and their recall to memory is extremely fast. I mean, it's like with milliseconds. And so I think, to go back to your question, are park owners going to become more trusting of it? I would hope so over time as companies start to build out. It's a little bit overwhelming, to be totally honest. Like right now, the amount of AI noise there is just overwhelming. If you just, I mean, I get my AI news on X.com, and like I follow all these AI accounts, and like every morning I wake up, I'm scrolling through my feed, and I'm inundated with the latest innovations. What needs to happen in our industry is that vendors need to come and bring solutions that actually solve problems that translate to a campground owner's needs, right? Like, I need somebody that I don't know. I'm trying to think of another good example. Like an upsell agent. Like somebody checks in. Like, is there an agent you can talk to that tries to generate ancillary income? Or if the customer is having an interaction with an agent, that agent knows that to look for opportunities to upsell, and so that could be done programmatically as opposed to the human remembering, hey, I could sell this thing to this customer, but I forgot, or I didn't have the opportunity to do it. And so I think it's just, like, I think for campground owners, it's going to be all about show me the money. And if you can show a clear either a cost reduction or a revenue impact, it's going to be a lot more tangible for them to wrap their heads around. And so I think that's going to happen slowly over time.
I know that one of the problems that we always faced back in, again, it's starting to feel like ancient history, but by my time with KOA, when we had weekend check-ins, and we'd visit a campground, and there would be 14 rigs parked in the driveway because it took so long to get people checked in into their sites. Do you see AI having a role in smoothing that out and really making that a rapid process?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reservation systems, like at a hotel, they've got those check-in kiosks. So in the sense that AI could build the kiosk and the software that people use to check in, yes, I mean it can build that solution very quickly. Like I could probably build that. Like I can get off this call, write up a product requirement doc using AI, and then send it into Cursor. It would code it up for me, and I'd have a first draft of a kiosk within a few hours. Now, then there's the whole process of actually making sure it works the way you intend it to and properly testing it to make sure it doesn't do crazy stuff. So, in that aspect, yes, you can solve that problem because you can build software a lot faster. Now, actually solving the problem on the ground of there being a lot of people trying to check in all at once, you'd have to break that problem down into its very elemental state, right? Okay, I have multiple customers here. They all need to do something. So what do we need to do? We need to check to see if they've paid all their invoices. And then we need to assign them a site number. So in that perspective, if the customer could come in, scan a QR code, and just have a chat conversation on their app or via text message with an AI agent or an AI employee that's the check-in agent, they could all be checking in simultaneously without necessarily needing to bottleneck at the front office. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I guess like two sides of that from an AI perspective. But I would approach at this point, I approach every problem AI first. Anytime I think of a business problem that I have, I'm like, how would I solve this using AI? Sometimes the answer is not AI, but in most cases there is an AI solution. And now there's like these like when I was talking about the AI employees and AI agents, there's tools out there for different levels of user. So Zapier is kind of like your that's a company that's been around for a long time. They allow you to build out trigger-based workflows. So it's like if a new reservation comes in, make a line in a spreadsheet that has all this information. Then there's tools like Lindy, which takes that to another level where it could be, okay, if a new reservation comes in, look at the data and take the data from the reservation. Well, is this a cabin reservation? Is this a RV reservation? Is this a tent reservation? And based off that information, it can then route that data wherever else it needs to go. And then there's tools like N8N, which is kind of the next level up, which is it's a little bit more robust and complex, where you can actually start to integrate different software applications together, as opposed to just like making a row in an Excel sheet. You can actually start talking to the APIs directly on the back ends of the software. So that's more of like, I would say Lindy, in my opinion, is something. Zapier and Lindy are things that non-developers can do. You need to be sufficiently technically savvy to be able to kind of figure these tools out. N8N is a tier up, and then there's LangChain, which is one tier even higher, which usually developers are the ones using LangChain or LangFlow. But there's like a whole series of these new workflow automation tools that have sort of come out that allow, different tiers of expertise to be able to leverage to build out these types of flows.
So are you waiting to hear from the needs from your campground owners, or are you out there promoting this so heavily that you're getting them where you want them to be?
Well, what we're trying to figure out is what do they need solved? Because I think we're that translation layer between the AI. We get the AI, and we're a software company, so we understand the campgrounds, but they understand the campgrounds much better than we do. So what we're trying to do is understand the needs that our customers have and look for use cases that actually can be solved using AI. And so what we're getting ready to release is actually in the RoverPass tab or in the RoverPass backend, there'll just be a section called AI employees, and it just says hire an AI employee. They can just start hiring employees to start doing things for them, different tasks, different flows, and eventually we'll have enough flows that are kind of the same thing over and over again that we've iterated through these different use cases, and I think we'll have like a dozen or 20 or 30 different employees that the campgrounds can hire for varying costs. Like each flow has some sort of underlying cost depending on if it's deterministic, which is your if this then that flow. That's usually there is no cost. But if you're sending the flow through a large language model like Anthropic or Grok or GPT, there's an underlying cost of processing that information because you have to pay. It's basically pay per use, right? So each employee will have a slightly different cost depending on how heavy the processing to do that job actually is. But
So
yes.
It all boils down to the customer experience and their feedback at the customer level. Do you expect that customer satisfaction scores are going to go up because of AI?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's I think if you think about automation in the past, you think of these like old school chatbots that like just gave you weird answers and like you're just frustrated, right? You're just like you're chatting with it and you're like, can I just talk to a human? Like, just give me a human. But that's not where we're at anymore in the life cycle. The AI is so good at responding to your questions that you would, it just depends, personal preference to some extent, but the AI is going to be likely better at responding to your questions now than a human would be, because a human takes longer to answer your questions, or they forget, or they don't know certain information, or they can only recall certain amounts of information, where all of those limitations are now gone with AI. And so I 100% think that customer satisfaction scores are going to go up. I mean, in my opinion, that's a given. Like that has to happen for AI adoption to actually work. And I think we're already there. Like the AI industry is to that point. Now it's sort of like, how do we take the complicated AI lingo and confusion and so much noise and stuff that's happening and translate it down to actual use cases that people can use to solve business problems in a way that actually makes sense to them.
Well, we probably got to get going. It is about that time. I mean, Ravi, I think we could sit here and talk all day about some of that stuff. There's just a lot to it. I know we didn't even get into LOT technology, what's been going on with metering and all that different stuff, but people can definitely catch up with you. You're going to be on the American Glamping Association's Lunch and Learn on August 7th, which is a pretty big deal for AGA members. And then you'll be on another podcast August 27th with the guy I used to do this show with, Brian Searle. So that should be pretty fun too. So I guess people have lots of opportunities to hear even more from you. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Ben, and Mike. Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
It's always fun to see you, Ravi, and Michelle too. And a lot of times you two come together. So that's kind of neat. Michelle's the CEO. So, but I look forward to seeing you maybe if you're anywhere this fall. So.
Okay. Yeah, well, very good. I will be at glamping if you will be, and I will be at Ojai, and I will be at COE. So I'm assuming we'll be there. So we'll see you there.
Yeah, I'll see you around. So lots of shows. So, well, it was great talking with you, Ravi. Thanks everyone for watching the video, and we will be back next time.